High above the Arabian Peninsula, United Arab Emirates Air Force F-16s locked into tight formation, flanking an Indian commercial-style VIP airliner mid-flight. Scrambling advanced fighter jets to escort a foreign leader's civilian plane is outside standard protocol. It is a rare, top-tier security measure reserved only for allies of the highest priority. The UAE executed this massive aerial protocol for an incredibly brief visit. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was on the ground for exactly 2.5 hours. But that narrow window provided enough time to finalize a massive energy and defense alliance that the two nations had been negotiating for years. In just 150 minutes, the two leaders prioritized strategic security over standard diplomatic theater, signing two agreements that changed how India secures its fuel. To understand why the UAE rolled out this level of military hardware, we have to look at the macroeconomic threat currently squeezing global economies: unpredictable, surging fuel prices. This digital display highlights the sharp quantitative reality at the pump. While vulnerable nations like Sri Lanka have seen prices spike by 40% and major economies like the US hit 45%, India has suppressed its domestic increase to roughly 3%. The root cause of this pricing volatility comes down to physical geography, specifically maritime shipping choke points in the Middle East. This satellite view shows the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage in the Persian Gulf facing military standoffs and threats of naval blockades. If a prolonged conflict shuts down this waterway, it severs primary global oil supply lines for months. Without an immense emergency failsafe, a sustained war in that region would instantly collapse India's domestic energy market. During that rapid 2.5-hour window, Prime Minister Modi and UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan forged a definitive solution. The agreement outlines a massive physical transfer. The UAE will proactively store 30 million barrels of its own crude oil directly on Indian soil. When these two nations first discussed a Strategic Petroleum Reserve concept back in 2017, the proposed volume was capped at under 6 million barrels. Jumping from a cautious 6 million target to a commitment of 30 million barrels in 2024 represents a massive surge in geopolitical trust. For India, this single injection nearly doubles their pre-existing emergency reserve of 36 million barrels. India is effectively utilizing another sovereign nation's wealth to physically insulate its own economy from a global supply disaster. Signing the diplomatic paperwork is easy. The physical reality of hiding 30 million barrels of highly explosive fuel is a massive logistical challenge. This wide aerial shot captures the Visakhapatnam Port Trust facility on India's eastern coast, the primary fortified destination chosen to house this massive new reserve. The location was chosen through deliberate geographical strategy. Visakhapatnam sits as far away as physically possible from the highly militarized borders of Pakistan and China. The engineers didn't rely on sheer distance alone. The facilities holding the oil are built deep underground. The rigid military logic here is that burying the reserves under hundreds of feet of rock makes them functionally impervious to targeted aerial bombardment and ballistic missile strikes. India bypassed conventional storage tanks entirely, choosing instead to construct impenetrable subterranean fortresses, specifically designed to safeguard foreign assets during wartime. Yet, this 30 million barrel vault is just the vanguard of a much broader, integrated strategic alliance. During that tight 2.5-hour window, negotiators also locked in secondary agreements to establish long-term liquefied petroleum gas supply chains. They also established a robust new framework for joint defense equipment manufacturing and the direct sharing of cutting-edge military technology. This level of strategic trust raises questions about future cooperation, specifically whether both militaries will move toward deeper operational engagement or even shared access to regional training facilities. Whatever happens next, the immediate result is clear. The vulnerability of the Strait of Hormuz will no longer dictate the stability of the Indian domestic market. Burying 30 million barrels of crude oil deep in the Vizag caves creates a physical insurance policy the global energy market can no longer compromise.